Welcome, welcome. Princess seams, shoulder. We're going to be doing so. I should actually, before we jump into the princess seam, I should mention that so style lines are lines that basically bisect the body. So we call them princess seams, we call them style lines. They're lines that connect two darts, or they're lines that will take a dart all the way through to a point on the body. Oftentimes with princess seams, we'll see them either coming from the top of the shoulder down through the waist. And then if it's a dress, all the way through. If it's a trouser, maybe coming into the crease of the trouser. We've also see princess lines coming from the armhole. Again, what it's doing is it's absorbing all of that ease so that we can get a piece over the roundness of our body can be encompassed with the paper. So we're creating a two-dimensional form to cover a three-dimensional shape, but it's a much more complicated because we're really focusing on these curves versus these straight lines like we have done with our dart manipulation. So we think of princess seams, oftentimes women's dresses, blouses, we'll see a princess seam. If we don't see a dart, then there's some kind of contouring, they'll be done through a princess seam. If there is a skirt, you can have the, well, princess seam, yeah, skirts with princess seams. If it's just the skirt itself, it will be a seam that absorbs that dart. And instead of there'll be a seam line that takes that excess and then brings the line all the way through the garment. I apologize. I've been running around like a headless chicken. So like I didn't bring any garments out that have princess lines. Does the term princess seam or princess line or style line sound familiar to you? Yeah, you could recognize one. Okay, cool. Because I could also share images from the book. So this is that style line. So the dart has been absorbed from the waist and then blended into the shoulder. And that's done on the front and the back. Sometimes as a designer, you may only want the style line on the front, and that's fine. And sometimes you may want it only on the back. So with style lines, we can use them. It's basically our contouring without darts. So we have a style line coming from the waist here all the way up to just about the neckline where they have the collar piece. We have our style lines here coming through the center front and then blending up into the neckline here. The contour of the dart is blended into this placket piece here. And then we have a style line coming up and around here. So they can look different, but when we think about a traditional style line, we're thinking about a single seam that's going from armhole or shoulder down to the waist.
Would that be like what is on the front of this jacket? Is that technically a?
Does it go from the shoulder down all the way down?
Yeah.
Yep. That's a
goes
style
from the
line.
shoulder to the peplum. Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
That is a style line. Absolutely. Excellent. So I'm going to raise my camera again. So for style lines tonight, we're just going to do the first style line. Depending on time, we might only do the style line for the front bodice piece, but if we have time, we'll do front and back from shoulder to waist. So we're going to take all of the ease from our waist dart down here, and we're going to blend it up into the shoulder. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share. Again, this PDF is one that I just created, so you have access to it. So you have it in your folder. So if you need to refer to it to finish your style lines, you can go ahead. So the first thing I want you to do is to draw your grain lines so that you can trace your bodice. So we'll start by drawing a grain line on our paper and then going ahead and tracing that bodice. Make sure you mark the apex as well as your vanishing point for your dart. Well, you don't really need the vanishing point for the dart, but you do need that apex. This is the most important part right here. Is that marker dark enough for you to see? Probably, well, it's dark on the image right there. So once you have your piece drawn, once you have your piece traced, what we're gonna do is we're gonna connect through our apex, our dart notch, and then we're gonna bring it right to the center of our shoulder. So I'm just gonna find a line going through the apex, not the vanishing point, but the apex, that first dart leg. And what I mean by first dart leg, I mean the dart leg that's closest to the center front. So I'm going to make a line from here through here to the shoulder. So once you have your style line drawn, or your first initial line drawn, connecting your first dart leg through your apex to your shoulder, we're going to make a mark 1 3/8 down from the top of the side seam. So I'm lining this up against my side seam here, looking for my 1 3/8 mark. 1, that's 2, and that's 3. We're going to draw a straight line from this to our apex. And then from there, ignoring this line for now, we're going to make a notch mark 1 inch from the apex off this style line in the initial 2 legs. We're going to cut this piece out once we have our notches on our legs. Go ahead and cut this piece out. So once we have our piece cut out, we're going to cut out this entire dart intake, our initial dart intake, making sure that our notches are on the line so that we can see it once we've cut it out. And then we're going to cut this line in half. We're basically creating our two separate pieces that we're going to draft our pattern from. We're going to slash along this line that we drew. So we're going to cut up to and not through the end of this line. This line is from the apex down 1 3/8 of an inch from the side seam from the armhole. With our slash line done, we're going to go ahead and secure this to a new piece of paper so that we can manipulate our opening. What I like to do is I like to flip my dot paper over, or like I have in the image there, I have gone ahead and used a printer paper because it was easier to see visually. Let me see if I still have my pink printer paper, actually. This piece that we're securing is now called the side front, and this piece is now called the center front, because this piece, this is the center front line. This piece is closest to the center front, so it's the center front piece, and it cases this, it has the center front in it. And this piece, it's on the side, so it's the side front, because it's still a front piece. So with the side front piece, I'm going to go ahead and mark a 1/8 inch line just above the bottom piece. that 1/8 inch line is gonna be my placement piece of my top. So I'm gonna go ahead and slide my slashed top of my side front. Just keep it right there. Once I find that my top line is touching that line, I'm gonna go ahead and secure it with tape. Little Pac-Man. We're gonna add a notch along the style line above the axis point. And we're gonna draw a mark 1/32. So this is gonna be super, super, super tiny, right above our apex point. So if we're using one of these see-through rulers, it will be half the distance, the smallest notches. And then along this dart leg here, we're gonna make a line 1/16 of an inch in the dot paper. So one of the smallest slashes. So from this point, I'm gonna go 1/16 of an inch. From this point, we're gonna go 1/32 of an inch. So half a 16th. So our pattern should look like this. We have our notches from the beginning, and these teeny tiny little notches right by these points. My pattern here is a little bit darker. But essentially, it should look like this. So we have our mark here, mark here, and then we're going to blend through our piece here with our rounding. Yeah. The top, the bottom. Now we're going to use our French curve. I had my big French curve available for this. If you have a big French curve, you can also use this. Your mini French curve will work, or any French curve will work. And we're going to curve a line out and around from our points. So from our 1-inch notch, 1/32 of an inch out, we're gonna curve a line, and then a 1/16 of an inch in. We're gonna continue that line till we hit that line. So we're gonna curve here, from a curved line from our 32nd out to this point, and from this point to this point into our 1/16 of an inch. So we're starting to contour a bit into our piece. Once we have this curve established, we're gonna blend from our inside of 1/16 of an inch. We're gonna blend this curve down to this point. We don't want to go more than a 1/16 of an inch into our piece. So you'll have a gentle slope inward on the bottom portion of the side front. And you'll gently slope out and around where our apex point is, and you'll slope back into our top of our side front. So once you have established your curve on your side front, we're going to go ahead and trim this new line out. So it's going to come in, contour in slightly at the bottom, contour out right at the apex, and then contour almost in all the way up to the shoulder tip. We can put it to the side. We're gonna start working on this up front. Remember, this piece does not have seam allowance. Not yet. So give me a thumbs up or let in the chat, or just let me know verbally once you've gotten to this point, because we're going to be introducing the concept of walking. Yeah, okay. Cool. So we haven't talked much about walking because we've been using standard blocks and we've just been putting them together so far. So for instance, we know that our side seams sew together. We know when we close this dart, this distance of these shoulders sew together and they work perfectly. When you're making patterns, how you know that your pattern is going to sew together is you do something that's called walking. And what walking is you literally seam line to seam line, roll the piece across the other piece to see where it all falls, so that we could see if the pieces will sew together. So right now you can see that my side front is larger than my center front. So we need to, before we do anything else, what we're going to do is we're going to walk our side front along the center front. We want to match these notches because we shouldn't have changed much from our waist to our notch or from our shoulder to our notch. That's where we want to walk. If this in the middle is bigger, that's okay. So what we'll do is we'll lay right side of our side front on top. I can see through, but you probably can't see on my camera where my notches are. And what I'm gonna do is I could physically walk it, or I can use my awl and rotate just to make sure that these lines are matching up everywhere. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put a little indent here. That's perfect. It lines up perfectly with my notch on the bottom. And then I'm going to do the same thing for my shoulder. Just trying to see my notches line up perfectly. Make a little indent. It walks perfectly. So my pieces from the waist to the notch on both the center front and the side front, they walk. And from the shoulder to the notch on both the side front and center front, they walk. So I'm good to go. If your pieces are not walking, you need to adjust these curves. So if this piece is too big compared to this piece, you need to make this curve a little bit more shallow. Take out some of that extra distance. If this piece to this piece, if this is shorter, then you need to add a little bit more curve so that this curve will walk onto this. I want you to take a minute to walk your piece because it's going to be the hardest walking that we do today are these two pieces.
Are we gonna cut them out of muslin next?
No, we're not actually. So
Okay.
because we've used the first hour already with just the first piece, and I want to see you walk your pieces. I want to challenge you this next week for your homework to complete this last 14 pages and create the back piece, just like how I have written out in this piece. And then, oh, don't worry about this. I'll edit this page. This is from another class. But I want you to do your back piece as well, following this PDF. So you're gonna see that you'll notice that there's a lot more curve on your front piece than your back piece. Why do you think that could be?
Because ladies have boobs.
We're rounder in the front. Yes, yes. We have a lot more rounding. Why do you think it's okay if this part is larger than this part right here? Between these two notches is larger than between these two notches. Think back to our sewing sample when we sewed a half circle to a rectangle. I might want a little extra space in one portion, the round portion. No wrong answers.
I'm not sure.
Because if we don't have extra space, we'll be creating pieces with angles, not with soft curves. What we built in here between these two notches on this piece is what's called ease. We're going to see this repeated when we get to sleeves. And what that does is it allows us to go just round the curve. So our breast isn't flat with a circle attached, you know, like a sofa cushion. It's round. And if we have a little extra fabric here, what will happen is it will round over the breast. And when you sew this straight line with this extra spit here, it will round over the breast and it will sit nicer versus keeping us flat on the side and like a shelf. So it's going to be more of a contour around your natural shape. When we get to sleeves, it's easier to demonstrate that with sleeves, because if we think about how our shoulder, it comes out, it's round, it's not flat. There's a roundness to it. We build an ease in our cap so it can round over the shoulder. And we have a little fabric to go over this round part of our body. So this little added ease here is so that our side front piece doesn't sew in flat, it sews in, so it doesn't sew in flat, it sews in curved for our shape. So then the pieces together will create a curve versus a curve with a straight line. When we sew this, after we do our back bodice patterning, you'll be able to see the difference.
I feel like my pieces don't walk as well after the seam allowance.
The seam allowance is going to be bigger than the seam line. It's the seam line that has to walk. If the seam allowance is bigger, that's fine. Because the seam line marks, because it's where we sew it together. And we want our places where we
Yeah.
sew to line up, not the extra bit of fabric to keep that stitching in place.
All right, so you want to see us walk them? Is that the next plan?
I would love to see you walk them just on the seam lines if you can, or you can draft that second piece on your own time
Okay.
and work on your project one. Because I was hoping that we would get through the front and the back, but I never anticipate, you know,
Yeah.
online is interesting.
Oh, I bet it's completely different. Well, it walked a lot better before I added my seam allowance. So now I'm gonna have to maybe redo it, I guess. I don't know.
If it
Don't know
walked
why it
before
would
your
be
seam
different.
allowance, then it's fine. It's going to be different because your seam allowance, you have extra fabric that you're adding so that when it sews together, it will work. The seam line is the only line that matters for walking, because that's the parts that get sewn together. So you can do is line it up, seam line on top of seam line, and use an awl and walk it just on the seam lines.
Okay. I have you on my tablet. I'm not sure I could show you that, but
That's okay. You can also, another way to walk the piece is you can measure from waist to notch on both pieces and see if that measurement's the same, as well
Okay.
as notch to shoulder.
So, now I try to walk it, but I'm not sure if you can see it because my camera is not.
Can you do it in the air? Or if you can't show me, what you can do is measure the pieces to see if the pieces are the same measurement from the waist to the notch, and then from the notch above the apex to the shoulder.
From the knot to the waist is 1, 2, 3 inches.
On the center or on the side? On both?
Side.
Okay.
And then now I measure the center front.
Mhm.
It's 3, same.
Good. So that part walks.
And it's 2 inches between 2 notches for the side front. And then, yeah, 2 inches the same.
Okay.
And then from notches to shoulder. 3 1/4. Three and 1/4 same.
Good. So it sounds like it walks. It doesn't sound like you have much ease built into the side front, and that's okay. Your princess will be a little less rounded, but since it's going from the shoulder to the waist, it's when we get to the armhole, sorry, when we princess from the armhole, we'll see that the side front piece is going to need to be larger than the center front piece. You might want to put like 1/8 to 3/16 difference in that side front, just to give it a little bit of curve, like right in between those 2 notches in the center. But if they match exactly, you'll be okay, especially at this point in our patterning.
I mean, if I want to make it a little bigger, then do you mean I have to make the bigger curve?
Just between the curve, yeah. So what you could do, you can either clip back open your slash line and just open it 1/8 of an inch more and then round that out.
Okay.
But don't open it more than like 1/8 at most. It's just a little ease that you want, just a teeny tiny little bit, just to round that out
Okay, like 1/8.
at most.
Okay, at most. And I have a question on my project, and I try to search the pocket, but when it comes to the corners, I don't know how to turn it in my server.
Yeah. It's very hard. Um, I'm trying to think it. So what you can do is you can clip that corner up to right before that the seam line.
Like this.
No, clip the corner the other way, like into the point. Here, let me. Right?
Yeah.
If you clip this in right here, because this is the seam line. What you can do is you can fold, if this is clipped, you can stitch just this,
Oh, I see.
stitch just this with this folded back.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's challenging. You can't bring it through the serger any other way
Yeah,
and have all the edges.
yeah, I destroy one pocket piece when I search it, that light on the serger just cut all the way at the corner.
Yeah. It happens to the best of us. I'm proud of you for attempting it.
And I just finished the pocket.
Ooh,
This.
that looks so nice. Can you lift the flap? Can you lift up the flap? Just-
Like this?
Yes. Oh, very nice. Oh, that looks great. Did you serge the top portion of the flap or did you just have it raw?
Which one?
The top portion of the flap on the inside?
Inside, I searched it.
Beautiful, perfect, beautiful. It's hard to tell in the camera, so I was like, oh yeah, there you go. It looks like your upper loopers are a little loose.
Yeah, I just don't know how to adjust the tension. I don't know if there's the tension problem or any problem. It just loose.
What kind of serger do you have?
Brother.
Okay. So oftentimes you're going to have to adjust the tension every single time you use it. So for example, there should be, oh, you have to adjust, it looks like on yours, you have adjustable tension. Do you see those knobs on the top? Yeah. So every time you start with a new type of fabric, what you're going to have to do is run test pieces through it to see where the tension needs to be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then sometimes you'll want a tighter, sometimes you want a looser. I have mine doesn't have that same tension adjustment because I paid a lot of money and I got the auto tension. Which makes it a little faster, but I still have to adjust a few of the different knobs. So you have tension for each thread here.
Yeah.
You should have 2 tension wheels inside. They're for the stitch length and width, the blade length and width. So sometimes you'll have to adjust that.
This one?
Yes. And then you should have on this outer edge here, a lever that can go up and down. Okay, so so you have this one inside and you have that one there. And then do you have like a lever like this?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the differential feed. And what this is how the feed dogs feed through and how the presser foot keeps it. So you can gather by adjusting your differential feed, or you can have it straight if you keep it at the neutral. And different fabrics, because of how they have drape, you might have to still adjust the differential feed even for flat. So your adjusters that I would focus on each time that you change your fabric are these 4 to begin with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I
And
will
the
try.
best way to diagnose it is to change the color thread. So
Mhm.
each thread a different color so that you can see which threads are off.
Okay.
I'm trying to finish my costume since, Halloween is like,
Yeah, no, that's
Sunday.
why. So this class is set up thinking that everyone's working professionals and there should be time for you to sew in class as well as time to learn new concepts. So
yeah.
yeah,
I got the facing in it. I'm not happy. How do you finish like a facing around a zipper? Like how do you, it says just to stitch it flat. The pattern said just to stitch it flat and not like make a hem,
Mhm.
on the edge. I just don't like how it looks. It looks fine, but oh gosh. Shoot. I can see, I don't know if you'll be able to see that.
Okay. Oh, is it just a flat edge?
Yeah.
So,
And it's not straight, of course, but
yeah, no one's gonna see it. And if someone says something, you flick them on the tip of the nose.
that's exactly right.
You can, when you're sewing in your zipper, what I want you to do, let me see if I have a piece. So what you'll do is you'll pinch that edge of the fabric and the
Mhm.
zipper tape. You'll pull it through the facing piece and wrap it around the zipper tape, and then you could stitch the facing to the zipper tape, and that will keep the edges
Okay.
tucked under. So let me see if I have an example clothing wise of that. You're gonna see more in my house now because I'm gonna go to my closet. Ugh. I definitely don't have an example in here.
No worries. I just didn't know if you had, the directions were confusing to me.
So. See the facing, how the edges are sewn into the zipper? This has a lining, so I'm gonna have to go in between the lining. But essentially what you're gonna do is you're gonna go behind the facing, so behind the facing, and grab the zipper tape with the facing. Pinch the zipper
And then
tape
roll
with
it
the
in.
edge of the facing, roll it out this way, and then stitch it down to that zipper tape. And what that
Okay.
does, so that your facing piece
Okay.
is flat
Okay.
and you have no fabric. And look, this one's crooked too, so.
Okay, well, I think I'll leave it, but at least I know it didn't say to do that. It said to, hem the inside, like hem the edge of the facing, but it didn't say to hem or like curve it under. It said just to stitch.
Well, there's higher end finishings always that you can do.
Yeah.
I personally don't like to see raw edges when I sew things. So oftentimes I'll
Yeah.
make a facing and a lining so that I don't see any raw edges.
Okay. Oh goodness. All right, ladies, I'm gonna have to sign off. You guys have a lovely evening.
Okay, take care, Lacey.
Bye.
By the way, I had to make adjustments, but my points finally line up.
Yay!
One is the bottom is 3 inches and then the top is 3 3/16.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay, show you another piece that is that also that tension problem.
Yeah, that looks like it's too tight. It looks like one of the loopers, either the upper or lower, is too tight because you see how the fabric is folding.
Yeah.
You just want it to be flat and even on the edge of the fabric.
Too tight. Too tight. Okay.
So if the loop is curving over, let me see, I have a really good illustration.
Should I turn to larger number or smaller number?
The higher the number, the tighter it will be.
Okay.
The lower the number, the looser it will be. Trying to find something online to share with you because I don't have it in this folder. Ah, here we go. Drop this in the chat. Where is the chat? Uh-huh. There it is. You can take a look at that in the chat.
And one more question.
Yeah.
Actually, is facing and lining the same thing? If I make the facing bigger, the same size as the bodice, will it become a lining?
It would become a lining, but you'll still want to taper it to be smaller than the dress or the shirt. So
Oh,
remember how our facing pieces, we made them smaller on the sides and at the top?
yeah.
Yeah, so you'd have to do the same thing for the lining.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And the seam allowance for this part is 1/4 or half inches?
For the neckline, it's always a quarter.
A quarter, okay. Okay, I have no question for today, so thank you very much. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Dion. See you next week, okay?
Yeah.
See if you could pattern off that PDF, the back piece. Okay,
Okay, yeah.
bye.
Bye.
Really good too. I'll help out.
Oh, sure, if you'd like. I'll
All
be
right.
here.
See you next week.
Okay, take care, everyone.